Hey, I'm Taco,
And I am Mash.
and we're here from overwatchscore.com.
It's awesome to see you guys out there. And the Overwatch League has been kicking it in high gear behind the scenes. That's the funny part, right, Taco? And now we're getting into the first week of player signings on August 1st. And it's going to be a hell of a week. So we figured we'd kick off our first podcast to talk about what's happening.
Yeah, for sure. The news has been coming in kind of slow, but when it does, we get a whole bunch. So it's interesting how close to the open to the players signing period that they actually announced it.
Well, and again, typical of Blizzard, a lot of stuff is done behind the scenes, and then there's huge announcements that come out afterwards, right? So I do think the player signings on August 1st are going to be a big deal. I think you're going to see them go through all the way to October, and then I think you're going to see the teams announced at BlizzCon, along with probably the start of the season.
Yeah, do you think it's going to be front loaded, back loaded, or just constantly people getting signed over the course of the period?
You know what? It's a good question. I think you're going to see. Well, I think we're going to talk about the team rankings to start, and I think that's where the interesting angles come in. Is you've got teams like the Immortals in LA who are already well established, right? You've got Seoul that basically has its pick of the top Korean players in the world, and then you've got cities like New York and Boston with these huge franchises behind them, all this money coming into the system. It's going to be like they're going to cherry pick the top players. Are they going to build their own teams? Are they going to pull from Europe? So those are really the questions that we're going to ask, and it's going to be very interesting to see who signs where.
Yeah,
So
it should be really interesting to see that. And with the rankings, it's kind of up there. You're right that Soul seems like they're obviously strong, Immortal seems strong, but is that do you think that's because of the people running the operations or the fact that they already have teams, whereas New York and Boston have just owners with lots of money?
owners, big owners. Um,
Yeah.
I think what's cool. Well, Seoul is. I mean, South Korea is the birthplace of esports. Period. Right? They
Right.
started with StarCraft, so that's been the biggest thing, and they have their pick. And Kabam is a killer company. I mean, Kevin Chow doesn't own them anymore. He sold his stake,
Right.
but they got. I mean, they have the resources. They have the kind of I definitely rank them as a number one team. Period. There's no question. I'm sure you agree.
Yeah, it's tough. They've got that location, and Kabam sold for 900 million in two
Something
pieces.
ridiculous.
So Kevin Chow's probably not short on money to put into this.
Yeah, yeah, and you look at like how they're going to pick up players, player salaries. It seems like the base salary is at 50, which is understandable. Um, for the first year, I'm sure that's going to go up, but it looks like they're going to be more playing for the royalties, the wins, the bonuses, and stuff like that. So depending on the incentives coming to a player, but the thing is Seoul has countless players that can choose from. I mean, their World Cup team is insane, right? So you get you get South Korea's World Cup team. Just be like, yeah, by the way, we won the World Cup 2 years in a row. Now we're going to sign for the Overwatch League, and we're going to just dominate that. But so that'll be interesting. I think talk about the league rankings. I think we talked a lot, and second place definitely goes to Noah's team with the Immortals
Yeah, for
out of
sure.
LA. Yeah, so and I think that's out of sheer drive and know-how. I think he knows what he's doing. I think he's got really good partners, and they have a winning team now. So their team's already good. It just
Yeah, that
depends on who
certainly
they
gives
pull
them
in.
a leg up. It's hard to argue with Seoul being on top. They're probably going to be a team of the 12 best Korean players, and then everybody else will be kind of fighting for whoever they can get to move abroad. But the Immortals really do seem like the next most together team for sure.
I think I called it early. They're going to be like the New York Yankees. Everybody's going to root for them in the United States,
Yeah,
because when you start to bring in foreign teams and you create this global league, which I think is awesome. I mean, us living in the U.S., we're going to want to see a U.S. team win. It's just how we are. So it's going to be interesting. I think no matter who gets behind who, and despite the fact that you and I are native kind of New Yorkers, uh, I think we would all root for the Immortals if it came down to a finals type of situation.
yeah. I think I would love to root for the New York team, but I think everybody in the U.S. is going to be rooting for the first American team to be able to topple the Koreans. So it's
Yeah,
probably going to be LA.
and it's going to be pretty hard.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's probably going to take a couple seasons.
yeah, but you know what? I mean, talk about upsets in Overwatch. Like just this past week, you saw Australia upset Japan in the World Cup qualifiers, and that was like huge news. Like, and even the Australian team came out in the beginning and said everybody's underestimating us. Nobody expects us to do well, and they dominated that game beat Japan, knocked Japan into a slot where I think it was like Sweden or somebody else could actually qualify now.
Right.
So they created, they rearranged the whole dynamic of the structure just with that one win. So, I mean, and again, it's not League of Legends, it's not StarCraft, right? I mean, you can, you can get good players in Overwatch from all over the place. I know
Yeah, for sure.
a lot of the European teams are powerhouse teams. Um, so that's where it'll be interesting. I'm going to our article to look at our rank three, and I think I had San Francisco in rank three. Um, because of NRG's reputation, right? Because of who
Yeah,
they're
for
coming
sure.
in. They have a solid organization. They have a solid team. Their owners, that's the funniest part, is like their owners are this huge conglomerate of investors. And I think like A-Rod and Shaq are part of the owners of the San
Yeah, there's a couple
Francisco
of
team.
videos of Shaq out there hyping up the league.
I know, I know. Shaq's my age. I love him, so I can't say anything. I can't say anything bad about. Um, but then to round it out, like I said, Shanghai, I am sure is going to field its own squad. They've been super quiet.
Yeah, I
Uh,
don't see them being anything other than strong. San Francisco too. They're a huge mix of a lot of different things. So they've got NRG, and that's a ton of know-how, and then they've got a lot of celebrity endorsements too. But I think it's probably going to end up coming down mostly to who can lure the best players,
yeah,
right? And are they going to be able to outbuy Kraft and Wilpon?
yeah, and that's the thing is does Kraft come in with all his money and go, yeah, we're going to just buy everybody, which right now that's highly possible.
Yeah,
And
nobody's really talking about that idea yet, where they talked about the 50,000 minimum plus sharing, but they haven't talked at all about a maximum or a salary cap. So
yeah,
can one of these big wallet organizations come in and just buy the best players?
I don't know. Well, it's funny because in the rankings we had San Francisco third, and then we had New York following, and we had New York, Shanghai, Boston, kind of the four, five, and six. And I think all three of those cities are going to be really interesting to watch. Boston and New York simply because of the investment,
Mhm.
uh, and then Shanghai, like I said, NetEase owns the team. They are Blizzard's partner in China.
Right.
For those who don't know, I don't think that gives them. Somebody wrote an article as it gives them a leg up. I'm like, no, yeah, it doesn't do anything for them. But those three are going to be really interesting to see who they get in terms of players.
Yeah, it
Uh,
should be. I think when you were writing that article, you and I were talking a little bit about how it was pretty easy to put Soul 1 and then Immortals 2, and then a bunch of teams after that were pretty neck and neck until we start seeing some people signing players.
yeah, yeah, and I personally feel bad putting like Miami, Orlando at the end of the list. But the thing is, the Misfits do have a solid team. They do know what they're doing. The organization knows what it's doing. They probably will pull a lot of early players in from Europe to build that team.
Mhm.
So even though we have them ranked seventh, there's no real there's no real rank, right? I mean, I think after you
Yeah.
go one and two, I think the four, five, six, seven, eight, seven teams can go in any order. It's just a matter of preference and how the league plays out. But it's going to be fun to watch, especially the player signings. That's going to be the biggest thing. So I think that cleaves up our rank pretty well as far as where we see the teams falling into place.
Yeah, I agree. Seoul is going to get the top Koreans, easy to rank. Immortals already kind of have their team, but everybody else is just kind of floating out there until we see those signings coming in. It's still going to be a little gray.
Yeah, totally, totally. So cool.